Dinner that night started like any other Friday. The table was full. Laughter, dishes clinking, stories being traded faster than I could follow. It was my daughter Lynn's turn to host, but she'd asked if I could come early to help with the salad. That usually meant she needed someone to keep her daughter, Emma, off her phone while she cooked. Emma is 16, bright, opinionated, and far more attached to her phone than to the people around her. Still, I adored her. She reminded me of Lynn at that age. All sass and sweetness tangled into one beautiful mess. When everyone finally sat down, I felt invisible. It happens sometimes. When you reach a certain age, people stop asking what you think. They just tell stories around you. I smiled, ate quietly, and listened as Lynn went on about her new job, and Emma talked about her plans for college. Then it happened. Emma, scrolling through something on her phone, laughed and said, "Mom says you're kinda old-fashioned and out of touch, Grandma. Is that true?" She said it casually, not cruelly, but thoughtlessly. The way young people can be when they haven't learned that words have weight. The table went quiet. Lynn's fork froze midair, and my son-in-law Brian coughed awkwardly. I looked at my daughter. Her eyes flicked up from her plate, nervous, defensive. She wasn't expecting her daughter to repeat that. I felt a sharp sting in my chest, but I didn't let it show. I just smiled. "Well, Emma," I said softly, "I suppose that depends on what you call old-fashioned." She giggled, shrugging. "You know, you still print photos, don't use TikTok, and think girls shouldn't post bikini pics online." Lynn jumped in, voice tense. "Emma, that's not really dinner conversation." But I raised a hand. "It's all right, Lynn. She's just asking." I leaned closer to my granddaughter, my tone calm but steady. "Sweetheart," I said, "I believe some things deserve to stay private. Not because they're shameful, but because they're precious." She rolled her eyes and said, "But times are different now, Grandma." I smiled again. "Yes, they are. But people aren't." That's when I knew this wasn't about social media or opinions. It was about something much deeper, a memory I had buried for years. A flashback, 1998. Lynn was 20 then, wild, beautiful, stubborn. She'd just moved out, chasing her freedom like it was oxygen. One night I got a call from a friend's daughter. She was at a party and Lynn was there too, drunk, crying. I remember grabbing my keys and rushing out into the cold. When I found her, she was sitting on the curb, mascara smeared, one shoe missing. Someone had taken pictures. Back then it was film cameras. But the cruelty was the same. I took her home, cleaned her up, and the next morning, while she slept, I found a few of those photos stuffed into her purse. I could have destroyed them, but I didn't. I wrote a note on the back of each one, a reminder of what she'd survived, what she'd learned. Then I sealed them away in a small wooden box, not to shame her, to protect her. Because love doesn't erase mistakes, it remembers them quietly so they don't happen again. Back to dinner. As dessert came out, I felt that box calling to me. The one buried deep in my dresser drawer for over 20 years. So when dinner ended and everyone started cleaning up, I slipped away. I went home, opened my dresser, and pulled out the box. It was old now. The corners softened, the wood faded. Inside were those same photos, still in their envelopes, and those same notes, written in my shaky cursive. Each one a lesson, a memory, a piece of our family's quiet history. I looked at them and whispered, "Maybe it's time she knew." The next evening, Lynn called. "Mom, about what Emma said." I cut her off gently. "Don't worry. I'm not upset," but she hesitated. "Still, I shouldn't have said that around her. It wasn't fair to you." Her voice cracked a little. "I guess I just wanted to seem modern, like I'm raising her differently. Better." I smiled sadly. We all want to believe we're doing better than our parents, Lynn. But we forget who taught us how to survive in the first place. There was silence on the other end. Then she whispered, "You're right, Mom." I knew then that the real conversation wasn't with Lynn anymore. It was with Emma. Because I could see the same path beginning again. Pride, rebellion, recklessness. And I couldn't just stand by and watch. The plan, so I invited them both over for Sunday dinner. "Nothing fancy," I said. "Just family time." When they arrived, the house smelled like roast chicken and cinnamon bread, the same meal I made when Lynn was little. We ate, talked, laughed, and just when things felt calm, I said, "Emma, I have something for you." I went to my room, took out the box, and set it on the table. She tilted her head. "What's that?" "Something old-fashioned," I said, "but not out of touch." Lynn's face went pale the moment she saw it. Her hand reached for it instinctively, as if she already knew what was inside. The room went quiet when I set the wooden box on the table. It was small, barely the size of a bread loaf, but the air around it changed, heavy and charged. Lynn froze. Her hand twitched slightly, like muscle memory was pulling her back 25 years. She knew that box. Emma looked curious, even amused. "Grandma, what's this? Some kind of treasure chest?" she joked, tugging at the old brass latch. Lynn's voice cracked. "Emma, don't," but it was too late. The latch clicked open, and the lid lifted with a soft creak. Inside, the photos lay neatly stacked, each one wrapped in yellowed paper. The faint scent of lavender, from a sachet I'd tucked inside years ago, filled the air. Emma picked up the top photo, giggling at first. "Wow, this looks ancient." Then her expression shifted. She squinted, blinked, and looked up at her mother. "Mom, this is you." The color drained from Lynn's face. She reached forward quickly, snatching the photo from Emma's hand. Her voice trembled. "Mom, you kept these?" I nodded. "Yes, I did." Emma frowned. "Wait, why? What even is this?" Lynn pressed her lips together, her eyes glossy. She whispered, "It's a mistake I made a long time ago." I leaned back, calm but deliberate. A mistake that almost ruined her life, sweetheart. One that I protected her from. The silence between us. Emma stared at both of us. Confusion, curiosity, and discomfort swirling in her young face. It reminded me of when Lynn used to get caught doing something reckless, right before tears would come. "I don't get it," Emma said slowly. "You kept old pictures of Mom being... what? Young? Having fun? Why's that such a big deal?" Lynn shot up from her chair, voice tight. "Because not everything needs to be posted, Emma." Her hands shook as she placed the photo back into the box. Back then, if those pictures had spread, if they'd reached my college, my job, it would have destroyed me. "And she pointed at me. "She kept them safe." Emma blinked. "You mean Grandma hid them for you?" I nodded. "Yes, I made sure no one saw them. People were cruel, even back then. They just didn't have phones to do it faster." The girl's face softened. She looked down at the photos again, the laughter gone from her eyes. It hit her then, the difference between a moment and a mistake. The lesson I never spoke aloud. I poured everyone tea, though my hands trembled slightly. I hadn't planned to reveal all of this, but life has a way of making truth arrive uninvited. I looked at my granddaughter and said, "When you said I was old-fashioned, you weren't wrong. I come from a time when women were judged for every step they took, how they dressed, who they loved, how loudly they spoke. I was called names for wearing pants instead of dresses. Your mother was called worse for making one bad choice. But I learned something. Privacy isn't shame, it's power." Emma's eyes glistened. "I didn't mean to sound rude, Grandma. I just thought you didn't understand things now." "Oh, darling," I said with a gentle laugh. "I understand more than you think. I just don't advertise it." Lynn let out a shaky breath. "Mom, I should have told her. About that night. About what you did for me." I smiled faintly. "No, sweetheart. That's not something you tell. It's something you show. A flash of the past." The memory of that night hit me again, sharp and vivid. I remembered driving home with Lynn crying in the passenger seat, whispering, "Don't tell Dad, please." And I hadn't. I'd made up a story. Said she'd fallen, said she was sick. Then, when the negatives of the photos came to my door, I paid the boy who had them to hand them over quietly. It wasn't about covering up. It was about protecting her future. Even now, decades later, she didn't fully know how much I'd done. And sitting at that dinner table, I realized neither did Emma. The truth, finally shared. Lynn placed her hand on mine. "Mom, I was angry when I found out you'd kept those photos. But now, I get it." I looked at her, smiling softly. "I didn't keep them to hurt you, Lynn. I kept them to remind myself that you survived something ugly and grew stronger." "Emma," still staring at the photos, whispered, "You always say people change. But can they really? Or do they just hide the parts they don't like?" I reached over and touched her hand. "They change when they learn to forgive themselves. And sometimes they learn it through what others forgive in them." The girl nodded slowly, her face thoughtful now. Lynn exhaled, her shoulders dropping, years of hidden shame melting into relief. "Emma," she said quietly, "the world may tell you to post everything, to prove something. But trust me, once it's out there, it's never yours again." The moment of understanding. I could see the shift happen, the first spark of maturity lighting in Emma's eyes. For the first time, she wasn't rolling them or half listening. She was seeing us, really seeing the women who came before her. She reached into the box again and pulled out one of my notes. It was short, just 3 lines. "One day you'll have a daughter too. She'll test you. You'll love her anyway." Her lips trembled as she read it. Lynn gasped softly. "You wrote that for me?" "Yes," I said. "But I think it was really for both of you." The 3 of us sat there for a long moment. Past, present, and future joined together at one worn kitchen table. No more judgment, no more pretending, just truth. But the night wasn't over yet. Because what happened next, what Emma did, turned that quiet understanding into something unforgettable. Emma sat quietly for a while, running her fingers over the edge of one of the photographs. The once playful sparkle in her eyes had softened into something deeper. Thoughtfulness. She wasn't just seeing her mother and grandmother as family anymore, but as women who had lived, stumbled, and carried secrets heavier than she'd ever imagined. Finally, she spoke, her voice small but steady. "Grandma, did you ever do something you were ashamed of? Something like what Mom did?" I smiled faintly. "Oh, sweetheart, every woman alive has. The only difference is whether we let it define us or teach us." Lynn let out a shaky laugh. "You? Ashamed? Mom, you were always perfect." "Perfect?" I chuckled. "Honey, if only you knew." A story I'd buried. I stood up and walked to the cabinet near the window, the one no one ever bothered to open. Inside was an old jewelry box, faded and chipped. I took it out and set it next to the box of photos. "Since we're telling truths tonight," I said, "let me tell you about the first time I truly disappointed my own mother." Emma leaned in. "You mean my great-grandma?" "Yes," I nodded. "Your great-grandma Ruth. She had hands that could sew anything and eyes that missed nothing. When I was 17, I ran off with a boy she didn't approve of, a boy who promised me the world and couldn't even buy himself a decent coat." Lynn blinked. "You never told me that." "I know," I said softly, "because when he left me 2 months later, broke and heartbroken, she made me walk all the way home. Wouldn't even send your grandfather to fetch me." Emma gasped. "She made you walk?" "Every step," I said. She said, "If you were old enough to leave, you're old enough to find your way back." I was furious at her. But now, looking at you both, I understand. She wasn't being cruel. She was teaching me what standing alone feels like, so I'd never fear it again. 3 generations of lessons. Lynn was quiet, her eyes glistening. "I thought I had it hard with you, Mom, but you were fighting battles I didn't even know existed." I nodded. "That's how it always goes, dear. Every generation tries to make the next softer, but sometimes softness turns into fragility. And then we forget that the world doesn't stop being sharp." Emma swallowed hard, looking from me to her mother. "So, you both messed up, got hurt, and still made it?" I smiled. "Exactly. The real question is, when you fall, do you let it bury you or build you?" Her lip trembled a little, and for the first time that night, she stood up, came around the table, and hugged me. "Grandma, I think I've been kind of mean to you. I thought you were just old and stuck in your ways. I didn't know." I hugged her back tightly. "You weren't mean, sweetheart. You were young. And the young always think they're inventing pain for the first time." Lynn wiped her tears, whispering, "Mom, you always knew what to say." The phone call. Just then, Lynn's phone buzzed. She frowned and glanced at the screen, her husband's name glowing. She picked it up, listened for a few seconds, and then went pale. What happened? I asked. She swallowed. His company just posted an old video of one of the employees, something personal. They thought it was funny. But now it's spreading. Emma frowned. You mean like a video that's embarrassing? Lynn nodded. Worse, he's asking what to do. It's someone he knows, a woman. I exchanged a long look with my daughter. Tell him to stop it, I said quietly, before that woman becomes a ghost who has to live with something she never meant to share. Lynn hesitated. Do you think it'll make a difference? I met her eyes firmly. When someone stands up, even one person, it always does. She nodded, and for the first time that night, I saw the same quiet strength I'd seen in her at 17. The same strength that had once terrified me because it reminded me of myself. The spark of change. After the call, something shifted between us. Emma took one of the old photos, the one where Lynn was laughing with her friends, the one she'd wanted to destroy, and slid it into her pocket. What are you doing? Lynn asked. Emma smiled softly. I'm keeping it. Not to embarrass you, but to remember that even grown-ups can make mistakes and still turn out okay. Lynn laughed through her tears. You sure you're not just doing it to blackmail me later? Emma grinned. Maybe a little. We all laughed, a soft, shaky kind of laughter that feels like healing. A night of reckoning. Before she left that night, Emma turned at the door and said, Grandma, can I come by again next weekend? Maybe you can show me how to make that lavender pie you love so much. I smiled. Only if you promise to bring the kind of questions that make me think. She laughed. Deal. And as she disappeared down the path with her mother, I looked back at the two boxes sitting side by side, one filled with secrets, the other with lessons. They were both mine, and I was finally ready to let them go. But the story didn't end there, because a week later, when Emma returned, she brought something unexpected, something that proved that our family, for all its cracks and scars, was learning how to heal out loud. It was Saturday afternoon, the kind of gentle autumn day where the sun feels warm, but the air whispers of cold. I had just finished setting a pie to cool when I heard a knock on the door. When I opened it, there was Emma, holding a small cream-colored envelope in her hand. Her eyes were bright, but she looked nervous, like she was carrying something heavier than paper. Grandma, she said softly, I wrote you something. I smiled, wiping my hands on my apron. A letter? Goodness, I haven't gotten one of those in years. Come in, sweetheart. She followed me to the kitchen table, the same one where, just a week earlier, the truth about her mother's past had unfolded. She placed the envelope in front of me. My name was written on it in neat, careful cursive. Should I read it now? I asked. She nodded. I slipped the letter out and unfolded it. The paper smelled faintly of lavender soap, my favorite. Dear Grandma, last week I saw something in you I never saw before. Not weakness, not strictness, but strength, the quiet kind. The kind that protects people even when they don't deserve it. Mom told me more about how you helped her when she was younger. How you worked 2 jobs so she could go to college. How you sold your car when Grandpa got sick. She said you never talked about it because you didn't want anyone to feel guilty. I used to think being strong meant being loud or right all the time. But now I know it's what you do when no one's clapping. I want to be like that. I want to be like you. Love, Emma. My throat tightened as I finished reading. I folded the letter carefully and pressed it to my chest. Emma, I whispered, you have no idea how much this means to me. She smiled, but her eyes were shining. I wanted you to know that I see you now, not just as Grandma, but as a woman who's lived a whole story before I ever showed up. Lynn's confession. Just then, the doorbell rang again. It was Lynn. She came in holding a small box wrapped in silver paper. Mom, she said with a shy smile, I wanted to bring you something too. Inside the box was a delicate gold locket. When I opened it, there were 2 tiny photos. One of her as a child, and one of Emma. 3 generations, Lynn said quietly. I think it's time I start remembering where I came from, not just where I'm going. I felt tears prick my eyes. Oh, Lynn, You've always had my heart, even when we were at odds." She took a deep breath. "Mom, there's something else. I've been talking to Dad's sister. I told her about what happened here last week, about the photos and the letter. She cried, said she wished her own kids respected her the way Emma does you." I smiled softly. "Then tell her it's never too late. The trick is to stop teaching through guilt and start teaching through honesty." The family gathering. A month later, for the first time in years, we hosted a true family dinner at my house. No rules, no restrictions, no pretending to be perfect. The table was mismatched. Emma helped me set it with plates that didn't all match, candles that dripped, and flowers picked from the backyard. But it was warm, real. During dessert, Emma stood up and cleared her throat. I want to make a toast," she said nervously. She lifted her glass. "To Grandma, for teaching us that strength doesn't mean shouting. And to Mom, for teaching me that mistakes don't define you. I love you both." The room went still for a moment, and then everyone clinked glasses. Even Lynn's eyes glistened. Full circle. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I sat alone at the table. The empty plates, the faint hum of the fridge, the scent of lavender pie. It all felt like closure. I opened Emma's letter again, tracing the words with my finger. Then I took a small notebook from the drawer and began to write my own, to her. "Dear Emma, when you grow older, you'll learn that life isn't made of big moments, but of small ones that test your kindness, your patience, and your courage. The truth is, wisdom doesn't come with age. It comes with scars you've learned to wear with grace. If I could give you one gift, it wouldn't be money or heirlooms. It would be the ability to forgive. Others, yes, but mostly yourself. Love always, Grandma." I slipped it into an envelope and wrote her name on it, for someday, when she would need it. Then I turned off the lights, went to the window, and looked at the stars. For the first time in a long while, the night didn't feel so heavy, because I knew the story wasn't over. It was being carried forward,